All right, class. So today we're going to do factoring trinomials. That's where you have three terms. Last week we worked on factoring polynomials by using grouping and GCF. Remember to always look for GCF first. Always try to factor all polynomials, no matter how many terms they are, whether it's a binomial, trinomial, whatever. Always look for GCFs first. Okay? Greatest common factors first. Always do that first. All right. Factor by grouping is when you have four terms, but factoring a trinomial is what we're getting ready to do now, where you have three terms. So this is going to be page 15. So at the top, we put Q. Make sure I got the right book. 6, 5. We put Q4. We have page 15. And today's date is the 3rd. That's 5/3/2021. The title of this page is Factoring Trinomials. So we're going to be factoring trinomials. Those are three terms where A is equal to 1. And I'll tell you what that means here in a minute. Okay? So this is the title. Please let me know if I'm moving too fast by using the raise your hand tool, or unmute yourself and just say, Miss Reyes, could you please slow down? Okay. All right, with trinomials, the thing that we need to make sure that we understand, the reason why we went into factoring is because this whole unit is talking about quadratic functions. And remember, when we talked about quadratic functions, or at the beginning of this unit, I told you that a quadratic function is going to be a function that graphs a U-shaped line. So we need to make sure we remember that. Okay, so quadratic functions or equations, we're going to say functions, graph U-shaped lines or parabolas. U-shaped lines. A parabola is a U-shaped line. Yes, baby, go ahead. Okay. U-shaped lines. They also have an x squared term. You cannot have a quadratic function if it's not an x squared term. The equations have an x to the second power term. Without the x to the second power, it would not be a quadratic function. So, Ms. Reyes, what are you saying there? This is what I'm saying. This is the visual. Quadratic functions graph either an upward U or they graph a downward U. This is what the graph looks like. Okay. The equations, on the other hand, most of them are written in this form. Y is equal to AX to the second power plus BX plus C. Your A, B, and C are numbers. So it looks like this. Most of the time you'll see it's a trinomial. So what we're doing is factoring trinomials. We're factoring, in most cases, quadratic functions. Okay, in most cases, what we're really doing is factoring a bunch of quadratic functions if it has the x squared term. If it doesn't have the x squared term, it's just a trinomial if it has three terms, but it's not a quadratic function. Quadratic functions have an x squared term, and that's actually the highest degree. That means that that's the one that has the highest exponent. Okay, so if it has an exponent of 3, it's not a quadratic function. It has to have an exponent of 2 in order for it to be a quadratic function. Right? So this is some examples of what that looks like. And again, we've written this down before, but we need to make sure that we understand it. We may have 2x squared plus 5x plus 2. This is a quadratic function. The highest degree or the highest exponent is x to the second power, and it has an x to the second power in the equation. If it doesn't have x to the second power, it is not a quadratic function, okay? It's not a quadratic function. It's another kind of function, but it's not quadratic. Quadratic functions graph either an upward U or a downward U, not a sideways U, okay? But either upward or downward. That's it. Okay. Any questions about that? Another example of what it could look like is this. You might see even a binomial. You might have 15x to the second power. Notice x to the second power. That's what's making a quadratic function. And you might have just minus 3x. It's a quadratic function, even though it's missing the c term. It's still a quadratic function because it has the x squared term. Okay. The other that you might see something like this. You might see 7x to the second power, and you might see plus 8. This is still a quadratic function, even though the b term is missing. Even though the b term is missing here, there's no x term here. It's still a quadratic function because it has the x to the second power. And of course, you could see something as simple as this, x squared. This is a quadratic function because it has the x squared term. Any questions about anything that I've said so far? So for the most part, we're going to be factoring trinomials, but most of the trinomials that we're going to be factoring are quadratic functions. Most, if not all of them, are quadratic functions because they have the x squared term, and that's the highest exponent. All right, so let's go ahead and factor. And what does it mean, Ms. Reyes, when you said, because I told you I was going to tell you this, when a is equal to 1, that means the number that's in front of the x squared term is 1, okay? So we're going to start out factoring just the trinomials or the quadratic functions that only have x squared with no number in front. So it's automatically 1. That's what we're going to start off factoring first. And then we'll go to the quadratic function, start factoring ones that have a number other than 1. So let's do those first. Let's factor them first. All right. So the first one that we're going to do, I'm going to do the example, but write how we do it at the same time, okay? Instead of writing the steps and then do it, I'm going to do it as I go. So let's do some examples, and I'll explain as I go. If I move too fast for you, just let me know, okay? The first one. This is a trinomial, b squared plus 8b plus 7. This is a trinomial, but it's also a quadratic function because it has the x squared term, and that's the highest degree. That's the highest exponent, is that x or that variable to the second power. And you don't always have to use x in order for it to be a quadratic function or a function that you can graph. You can use whatever letter you want. Okay? Any questions about that? So now we're going to factor this. When you're factoring a trinomial or a quadratic function where a or that x squared term is 1, you're automatically going to assume that you're going to get an answer that's going to be 2 binomials. Okay, so I'm put 2 parentheses because it's going to be 2 binomials that are going to be multiplied together to give you this trinomial. Remember, don't forget, okay, Let me pause real quickly. Okay, so you know that again, if A is 1 and this is a trinomial, you're going to have two binomials as your factors. Okay, so now you have B squared. So since you have B squared, you're going to put 1B here and 1B here. So that when you multiply this, B times B is going to give you that B squared. So you automatically are going to put 1B in this parentheses and 1B in the second parentheses. Automatically do that. Okay. Now we're going to take this last number right here. This is a positive 7. And we're going to create a table. We're going to think of what two numbers can be multiplied together to give you a positive 7 that when you add them together, you get a sum of whatever this middle number is. This middle number right here is 8. So you get a sum of a positive 8. Okay, so we're going to list all the different combinations here of numbers that can be multiplied together to give you 7. But when you add them, you get a positive 8. So the only ones that come to mind for me are 1 and 7. 1 times 7. A positive 1 times a positive 7. When you add these two together, positive 1 plus a positive 7, it gives you a positive 8. So you're going to use numbers 1 and 7 in these parentheses. You're going to put either 1 or 7 here or 1 or 7 here. And they're both positive, so you're going to put plus, plus. And this is going to be your answer here. When I multiply these binomials together, the answer is going to be this trinomial. So these two binomials are factors of that trinomial. That means when I multiply them, it's going to give you this trinomial. Are there any questions about that? No questions? Okay. Surprised. Number 2. I'm moving too fast. Are y'all okay? Am I moving too fast? No? Okay. All right. Well, let me know. Okay, number 2. We have n to the second power minus 11n plus 10. Okay? We're going to follow the same steps again. This is a trinomial, but this trinomial is also a quadratic function because it has an x squared term. And that's the highest degree. That's the highest exponent, which is that x squared term. So this is a quadratic function. If I was to type this in the calculator, it would give me an upward U. Okay, it would give me a parabola. All right, so in order to factor this trinomial, since the number in front right here, the a is equal to 1, we can assume that it's going to be two binomials that are going to be factors. You have an n squared, so you're going to put an n here and an n here. You're going to create a table. You're going to take this back number, this last term, this c, this constant. A constant is a number that does not have a variable attached to it, and that's a positive 10. And you're going to list the numbers that can be multiplied together to give you a positive 10, but the sum is going to be the middle number, which is a negative 11. So the sum has to be a negative 11. Okay? What two numbers can be multiplied together to give you a positive 10, but when you add them together, it gives you a negative 11? Yes. Very good. A negative 1 times a negative 10. When you add them together, a negative 1 plus a negative 10, that gives you a negative 11. Excellent job. So the two numbers that we're going to use is -1 and -10. It doesn't matter which one you write first. -1 here or -10, and then -1 here or -10. Doesn't matter which one you write first. When you multiply these two binomials together, they're going to equal this trinomial. That's what makes them factors. So this is your answer. Okay? Be honest. Are y'all okay? Are we confused? What are we? We okay? You shaking your head? No, yes. I can't see way over there, Aaron. All right. Raise your hand if you're still copying. Anybody still copying? Okay, all right. So let's see, Aaron. Let's follow procedure, okay? See if we can get it. We got m to the second plus m minus 90. All right, so let's see what we get here. This is a trinomial. Everybody good with that? Raise your hand if you're not. It's 3 terms. This trinomial is a quadratic function. It's a quadratic function because you have an x squared term, and that's the highest degree. If it had m to the third, it's no longer a quadratic function anymore. Okay? Any questions about that? The highest degree is x to the second power. That's it for quadratic functions. All right, I mean, you can still factor it. It's just not a quadratic function. All right, so now this is a trinomial where a is 1. So you can assume that the factors are going to be 2 binomials. Any questions about that? Aaron, are you good with that? Okay. All right, good deal. What are we going to put in each parentheses? What are we going to put in each one of these parentheses? What do we say? M, good job. So we got an M here and an M here because M times M is going to be M squared, right? Now, what did I say that you have to do? What do we have to do next? Make your chart, make your table, okay? And what are you going to put in this first column here? -90. And what are you going to put here? Sum of +1. Okay, those signs are super important. Okay, so you have to think what numbers can be multiplied together to give me a -90, but when you add them, you get a +1. Okay? All right, so what are your thoughts? What are you thinking? Just list some numbers. What 2 numbers can be multiplied, even if it's wrong, what 2 numbers can be multiplied together to give me a 90, a -90? You said 45 and 2, and we know that doesn't work, right? 10 and 9, that's good. +10 and +9. Well, no, because it's a negative, one of them have to be negative, right? So which one are we going to make negative so that when you add them together, it's going to be a +1? The -9. The 9 has to be a negative. Because when you add it together, you have a +10 plus a -9. That's the only way to get a +1. Does that make sense? Are y'all okay? No, maybe. I got 1 thumbs up. I got 1 maybe. Okay, good deal. More thumbs. All right. Okay, so now I'm going to use +10 and -9. So I can put +10 plus 10 here and -9 here. And that's my answer. Okay, how do you feel? Are we okay at home? I don't hear anybody. Can you guys let me know at home? How we doing? Okay, I got a couple thumbs up. Ashbin, I didn't see what you did. Are you okay? Yeah. Okay. Kevin? Thumbs up. Okay. All right, folks. Let me know. I'm going to keep going, okay? See if you can do number 4 on your own. We got n to the second power plus 4n minus 12. See if you can do that one on your own. I'm going to pause for the calls, okay? Give you some time. All right, so let's look. What did we do first? Anybody? Okay, so we did 2 parentheses. I heard somebody say that. And then I heard somebody say you put the N in both. All right, good deal. That's correct. Okay, what did you do after that? You you make your table. Good, somebody at home said. And what do you put here? You put -12 here. And what do you put here? Sum of what kind of 4? +4. Okay, good deal. Okay, so what 2 numbers did you multiply together to give you a -12, but they when you add them, they gave you a +4? We got 6 times 2. Which one did you make negative? You made the 2 negative? Okay. So when you add 6 plus a -2, that gave you a +4. Good job. Okay. So it doesn't matter which one you write first. We're going to write +6 first. And then we got -2. Use the raise your hand tool to tell me that you got this one right. Okay. You got this right. Use the raise your hand tool so I'll know. Pause for the calls. You can put your hands down. Great, great, great job. Oh, y'all did so good. Okay, let's do one more and that's it. Okay, I want you to do these 2 on your own. Which number was I on? That was number 4. So I want you to do 5 and 6 on your own. Okay, and then I want you to work on your EOC review number 2. And all you're doing is doing your best to answer the questions. I'm going to post the video tomorrow so you can make the corrections. But I want to give you time to see what you can answer first before just giving you answers. Okay. All right, so let's do this. N to the second power minus 10n plus 9. And then we have b to the second power plus 16b plus 64. Okay, I want you to go ahead and answer these, and we'll go over these again tomorrow. After you finish, I want you to go directly to your EOC review number 3 and work on that. And I gave you, those of you that are in the classroom, I gave you a hard copy of those so that you can write on it, but make sure you take the pictures and upload them to the assignment to submit. Questions, comments, or concerns? Do not submit EOC Review 3 until you have watched the video and made corrections, because I will be counting it for right or wrong, because you should have it right because the answers would be in the video. Any questions? I'm going to go ahead and stop the video here. You can watch this video later if you need the additional help. Guys, if you have questions, comments, or concerns, please text me and remind or unmute yourself and let me know.